What's up, guys? Mason the Brock Henderson here, and this is the Blacklist, Season 9, Episode 19, The Bear Mask. So, kind of a weird little detour, but ended up being actually a pretty good episode. So, first of all, everything going on outside of the acid trip. So, we do find out it was not Mr. Kaplan in the building. Kind of had that feeling, and it turned out to be her sister. I don't know if that means her sister's dead. Like, was she killed in that explosion, or was that all a setup to make it look like she died? I don't know. If she is dead, then that means whoever is running everything basically used her as well, which I had the feeling that if it was not Mr. Kaplan that was behind it all, whoever it is, again, my suspicions are still firmly set on Marvin Gerard, went to Kaplan's sister and told her, hey, Reddington's the one that got her killed. He is the reason she's dead, and used her to get the other safe made, make it seem like Kate might still be alive. That's kind of where my mind is, but if she actually died in that building explosion, I don't know for sure anymore. Now I'm wondering if maybe she was threatened by whoever's... I don't know. Maybe we'll find out a little bit more once we get the big reveal about who the mastermind is. But yeah, after that, just seeing that it was one of Reddington's accounts that was used to pay for LaCroix. Again, I have to think it's got to be somebody close to Reddington, which in my mind makes me think Marvin Gerard. He's the only one that we know of that has the motive. So I'm getting that feeling, I'm getting that notion, and I'm kind of sticking with it at this point. That's kind of the theory in my head that I'm going with, and we'll see if that's true. If not, I'm going to look like an idiot. If I'm right, I hope I'm right. The thing inside of Aram's acid trip, though, it was a little weird at first. Like, when it first happened, I'm thinking, okay, so what? Did the writers just want to have a Groundhog Day episode? And they're like, what's the best way we can do that in a show like The Blacklist, where it's supposed to be kind of more realistic and real world, and we're not going to have, like, magic. We're not going to have actual time loops. So how do we do that? An acid trip. Let's have somebody go through an acid trip, and then he's now... Everybody keeps dying, and then the day resets when everybody dies, and so he's got to try to get them all out. And I don't know, at first I'm thinking, okay, so what? This is just supposed to represent that he doesn't feel confident in the job, like he's going to get everybody killed. Okay. I mean, we already know he lacks confidence, but we've not actually seen much of that so far. We've not seen him in the job and his uncertainties of being in charge. So it didn't feel like that made too much sense to me. So when the flip happened, when we finally got that moment where it was revealed he was the one under the bear mask, which I also kind of figured that was the case. But when that happened and I started to realize what they were doing with it, showing that it's not so much the insecurities of being in charge, of being in that job, it's more so the insecurities of he doesn't feel like he is capable of saving anyone. You know, after what happened with Samar, after what happened with Liz, and then what happened with Nick, you know, all the people that could have been hurt by what he created, there is that feeling of maybe I've got to be a different person. You know, maybe I've got to be a bit more cruel, a bit more strong if I really want to save the people I care about. And I find that very interesting. And what I really like too is that moment when Samar in his hallucination does come in and does kind of shut up that side of his brain. It's a very nice scene because, first of all, I mean, Amir, I think his name is Amir Arison, I think. The guy playing Aram, he did a phenomenal job. I mean, he's had some really good emotional bits throughout the series. This was one of his highlights, in my opinion. Like, this was such a good scene for him. Not only just getting to play the darker version of himself, but that scene with Samar, you know, him trying to just reason out what he's going through. It really did kind of tug at the heartstrings a little bit. So I thought it was a very well done scene. But it does go to show, I mean, even Samar says, like, there's that feeling of you want to be a stronger, darker version of yourself, but nobody could have changed what happened. And it's something, they didn't say it, but I felt like it was implied. Look at Reddington. He has all of the resources in the world. He has such a dark, cruel side. He's willing to do whatever it takes to save people's lives, and even he couldn't save Liz. Even under his watchful gaze, she still died. So with that in mind, don't be like him. Don't change who you are, Aram. And I don't know. That's kind of the underlying message I feel like was in this episode, was that yes, Aram feels like he's not worthy. He feels like he's incapable of saving people, but that doesn't mean he needs to change who he is to try to save more people, because it won't change much. So I feel like that was a really well done and well executed moment, and it turned what was kind of a weird nothing episode, one that I kind of felt like was pointless. I feel like that was the moment where I realized, no, this did have a point. It was more so than, oh, Ram doesn't feel confident in the job. It was a lot more about, he has been dealing with a lot of trauma over the past few years. He's lost people close to him. His best friend basically betrayed him. There's been a lot that he's gone through, and he hasn't really had a chance to process that and feel like he is fully okay with everything that happened and really actually moved on. Because sometimes you do sort of get caught wallowing in that trauma and not willing to move on, not willing to let yourself move on. So yeah, I think it was a really well done moment, and it's funny because the past few episodes obviously have been very go go go, like we're learning a lot more information, and I'm very excited to get to that moment when we do get the reveal, because I'm assuming it's going to be happening soon. But with that being said, it's one of those episodes where we do take a step back. We do go, wait a minute, let's take a pause, let's actually focus on one of these characters real quick. And while it's not exactly what I wanted to see, I was okay with seeing it because of how well done it was. So yeah, all in all, good episode. On to the next one. I'll see you there. And now episode 20, Caelum Bank. It's very close. I was very close to giving up. It was about halfway through when he had Hetty and all that stuff. And I'm just like, God, I can't believe it. They actually went with Hetty. Oh, they got me. And then he killed her. I'm thinking, okay, well, this is halfway through the 20th episode of a 22 episode season. I'm going to take a guess and say that that's not it, which means I'm feeling a lot more confident about my Marvin Gerard theory. And then sure enough, they find the wedding tape, which it is interesting because they were talking about Claudius, and then Raymond called him Claudius. So is that his real name then? Or is that an alias? I don't know. It just, because when he called him Claudius, he didn't know that that was the name that was being used to run that whole scam with all the lawyers and stuff. So I don't know. I guess we'll find out, because I'm assuming he's going to be the next target. I don't know if they're going to do a two-part finale where he's the blacklister for both, or if it's going to be we have to go after somebody first and then he'll be the final episode for this season. But yeah, I guess we'll find out more about that and whether that was Claudius is his real name. But it's a great setup though. Like I like how they've set this up and how they've shown he is very capable of taking on Reddington at this point. And not just because he knows Reddington, he knows all about his business and all of that because he's been helping him for years, but he even watched those videos that Elizabeth was supposed to watch. And that kind of even further elevates the potential of him being able to take on Reddington, in my opinion. So it's a great setup in that whole final scene. Because honestly, I was kind of surprised whenever Reddington revealed that Hetty was still alive. I'm like, wait, he was onto it this whole time? But no, the moment with Park is what, I guess, helped him realize that. Which, did she have a headache? Honestly, it's something I kind of want to go back after I'm done with this season and just watch the final episode of last season and see if Elizabeth did have a headache. If she did, then okay. That's pretty clever for the writers to have written that in just in case we got to this point. If not, then it kind of feels like, okay, well, did we talk about her having a headache at all before this? Or is that just something they threw in to be like, oh, this is how he gave her the digestible tracker thing or whatever. I don't know. It kind of feels like one of those, because they didn't show a true flashback. They showed some probably stand-in that has similar features from behind. They showed her grabbing her head, and then they showed him, not even really him, just his hand, grabbing some pills and handing them to Elizabeth's hand. So it doesn't feel like this was something that happened in the last season, but was it something that they talked about earlier, is what I'm curious. Because it feels like this is too big of a moment. This reveal is too big of a moment for them to just be like, oh, by the way, this happened that we never saw or talked about before, but that's how we did it. I kind of felt like we were going to get a sense of, hey, you remember this one thing that happened? Well, guess what? That's actually how he managed to put the tracker inside of her. He was thinking ahead. So I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that just yet. But yeah, I think overall this was, again, another episode that kind of pulled a quick one on me, similar to the Andrew Henderson, where Caelum Bank was sort of the, I guess, the original focus, him trying to track down the guy in charge of it, and then we get the name, he gets Hetty's name, and then about halfway through, it's kind of flipped over now, and now we're focusing in on him trying to get the answers out of her. Meanwhile, the task force is still trying to look into this and figure out some more information. So, yeah, I think it was a really good setup. For Park, the little side story with her, I felt like was a little silly, in my opinion. Just because, I don't know. I mean, don't get me wrong. I've definitely experienced a similar feeling of whenever you have something that happens, there can be those doubts in your mind when you just feel like, wow, nobody wants me around. But for her, I don't know. This felt very much like, hey, they told you have to be sitting out. They told you have to work a desk job. Aram worked a desk job for years. He was still one of the most important people on the team. It wasn't for a while that he went out onto the field, I'm pretty sure. So for her to look at a desk job as, I guess they just don't want me around anymore, I feel like that's kind of stupid. Again, I know everybody has insecurities, and sometimes those doubts can enter your mind, and you can feel like, God, nobody even wants me, just because something goes wrong. But for her to make this jump of a conclusion that, hey, Department of Justice or whoever it is that makes those decisions, they said you're not allowed to go out into the field, so you're going to have to stay here and help us from behind the desk. For her to make that jump from there to nobody wants me, I feel like is a little too big of a leap. And I get we needed her to go see Reddington so that way she could have the headache and that could cause him to think back and then realize, oh, that's how Elizabeth had the tracker put in her. Like, I know that was the purpose. I feel like there's another reason you could have had her go to Reddington. Like, have the Department of Justice say, no, you're not allowed to work in the field. You have to work at a desk job. And maybe she comes in and says, hey, I can't do a desk job. I can't do that. Like, I want to be out in the field. Can you try to work some magic? I'll owe you again. And maybe then that's how it leads to that moment. But for her to be like, hey, they don't want me there, so I want to work for you now. It doesn't feel like a smart decision for Park. It makes her look a little kind of idiotic. So I was a little disappointed with that. That was really the only issue I had with this episode, though. Really looking forward to seeing what these final 2 episodes hold. So, with all that being said, let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. What were your thoughts on these 2 episodes? Let me know what we could talk about and discuss all that good stuff. Leave a like and subscribe for future Blacklist reviews, and I'll see you guys at the last review for this season. Peace out.